We've reached the subtopic of how to mentally prove the validity of religious matters whose realities cannot be proven mentally. Their realities can't be proven mentally. That is, we can't reach the reality of these matters by our minds. Rather, the reality of these matters is established by revelation, by the religion, not by the intellect. However, the validity of that reality we can prove. We can prove the validity of that reality, the truthfulness of it. It is true that the mind is not the reference for knowing the religious laws, nor the aforementioned creedal matters that cannot be known except through hearing. Actually, we didn't mention any creedal matters. Because the information you have here is extracted from another book. So, what's meant by the aforementioned creedal matters here are matters like angels, paradise, judgment day, essentials, but our minds can't reach them alone. We can know about the existence of the Creator, yes. By the mind, the person can know about the existence of the Creator. But angels and paradise and hell and these things, and that wine is haram, and that prayer is obligatory, and that pig meat, swine meat is haram. How do we know that this is true? How can we confirm that? It is true that the mind is not the reference for knowing the religious laws, nor the aforementioned, nor the creedal matters that cannot be known except through hearing. The only way to know about them is to hear about them, like enjoyment of the grave and torture of the grave. However, this does not negate the fact that we can mentally establish the truthfulness of the laws. We can establish mentally, rationally, the truthfulness of the laws and the truthfulness of the creedal tenets, the things that we believe in, our convictions. So, such as the prohibition of wine and the existence of paradise and hell. The way to that can be achieved in 8 steps. These 8 steps are from our sheikhs, not from me. It's what I've learned. It is very important when explaining this case to clarify to the opponent that not every deduction is immediate. 8 steps. Not every deduction is immediate. We kind of touched on that. Establishing the validity of the aforementioned cases, what's halal or haram, etc. Establishing the validity of the aforementioned cases, what's halal, what's haram, etc., in 8 steps is not a way to run away from the question. As an impatient atheist may say. It must be noted that some things are established in stages. Stages here means premises, introductions. One premises after the next. Especially since someone who does not believe in the existence of God would not believe that wine is unlawful. Perhaps if he was a philosopher, he might deny the existence of God and believe that wine is unlawful. Or rather, that wine is bad as opposed to unlawful. But in your average case, for what would an atheist believe that wine is unlawful? He doesn't believe in God. He doesn't believe that really there's anyone who can order him with anything. He's free to do whatever he wants to do. Yani, if there's no God to order him, then who is to order him? If he doesn't believe in prophets, then what does he deem a higher authority? Thus, there is no escape from establishing several premises. Here, the case will be summarized for the sake of brevity. Okay? What it says here about stuff being mentioned throughout the book, that's already gone from the text. That's already been edited out. I'll explain whatever needs to be explained. I'll add whatever needs to be added, inshallah ta'ala. And as for the text, these 8 steps are summarized. Step one, clarification of the channels of knowledge. We spoke about that already, right? So that's why it's summarized. We don't have to mention that again. There's 3 ways, which are what? Oh. Sound senses, truthful information, and the mind. Correct. The ways to achieve knowledge are sound senses, truthful information, and the mind. We'll agree on this first. For what? Why are we starting here? Who will answer this golden question? Why are we starting here? Step 1, clarification of the channels of knowledge. Why are we starting with this atheist, for example? With the clarification of the channels of knowledge. It's really a simple answer. I'll give you a minute to answer me. Is it what is written in the benefit? The creation will have knowledge. Not that the creation would have knowledge. So it won't say it's not proof. No, it's not what I'm looking for. 15 seconds. The reason is because we want to prove to him that these things that we can't mentally prove their realities, we can prove the validity of those things. So our goal here is not necessarily to prove to him that God exists. That's more important in fact. But what's the point we started with? That we can prove that, yes, wine is haram mentally. We can't originally know that mentally, but we can prove that it is haram mentally. To prove this type of thing, not talking about the existence of God. If you want to talk about the existence of God, you start somewhere else. But to prove this point, which is that our laws are valid and that our beliefs are valid, we'll start here. we will have to agree with this person about the channels of knowledge. Sound senses give you knowledge. If he disagrees, we'll refute him. Truthful information will give you knowledge. If he disagrees, we refute him. There's two ways, 2 points. There's tawatur, and there's what comes from a prophet. Everything else is speculative, or less. Anything other than what came from a prophet, or what came by tawatur, was confirmed from a prophet. And what came by tawatur is speculative. Could be a strong speculation to be true, but speculative nonetheless, or less than that, even doubtful. So by truthful information, we can know. If he disagrees, we'll refute him. Here. And we know what tawatur means already, so we don't have to explain it again. Whoever missed that lesson, then inshallah he'll catch it. And the sound intellect, sound mind. If he disagrees, we'll refute him. Sound intellect has 2 modes. What are they? Mind has 2 modes, brothers and sisters. What are they? Two ways of working. What I mean by 2 modes, 2 ways of working. Properly, that is. All right, I'll give you 30 seconds. Not necessary and inferred. That's 2 different types of knowledge. Conscious and subconscious, I never said those words. I never taught that. I didn't say that. We said by badiha, which is intuition, natural disposition. One might even say common sense. My least favorite of those terms. And by deduction, by intuition and by deduction. So if that person doesn't agree about these 3 matters, then we don't have to go further. How are you going to prove to this person that wine is haram? How can you prove to him that wine is haram if there's no submission here? Because there's got to be a way for us to know what's true and what's not true. In the end, what he will most likely lean to say is, there's no way you can know that something is definitely true. And we disagree. So step 1 is the clarification of the channels of knowledge. Now, here, this issue, I said I didn't say these words. This is an important case. Remember, when the person is acquiring the knowledge and giving the knowledge back to someone, if a person learns through proper transmission, then the person needs to transmit as it was transmitted to him. Don't rely on your understandings, brothers and sisters, to say the cases. Say them as you've learned them. Don't say them as you understand them. Say them as you've learned them. This way you'll transmit the information the way you received it. So, sound senses, truthful information, and sound intellect. And we can refute him here. We've studied this case now. You studied this case now, brothers and sisters. After those of you who've been consistent in these lessons, then After these weeks, something should have settled into your heart and started to unravel so that it's easier to grasp and understand. You should be able to refute anyone in these cases. How many senses are there? 5. What do you say if a person claims a 6th sense? There's no evidence for it. Truthful information is how many types? First, when we say truthful information, we mean what? Exactly, when we say truthful information, we mean what? I don't want you to tell me the 2 types. What do I mean by truthful information? When I say truthful, what do I mean by truthful information? There's an adjective you need to add here, or an adverb. There's an adverb you need to add here. "30 seconds. 15. Definite knowledge. I want you to adjust the word truthful here. What do I mean by truthful information? I mean, the time's up, by the way. I'll give you another 10 seconds. Thank you. No, not knowledge. Don't give me the word knowledge. Absolutely true. When we say truthful information, we mean absolutely true. Not probably true. Not most likely true. Truthful information here means, we mean by that, absolutely true with no room for error. Then what type of information gives you absolutely true knowledge with no room for error? Mutawatir and news conveyed by a prophet. Thank you. So we'll refute him on the issue of senses. We'll refute him on the issue of truthful information. You know what mutawatir is. What if he denies mutawatir? What would you say? How could you, for example, refute him by an example? If someone denied that you can get knowledge by tawatur, how do you know China exists, for example? How do you know what city you're in? How do you know? If, for example, one of you is in, let's say, what country? Let's say someone's in England. How do you know you're in England? How do you know? Well, he can't know that by his mind. He didn't wake up and know it. He must have known that because somebody told it to him. And he's sure. He's absolutely sure. He has no doubt whatsoever that he's in England. He only knows that because somebody told him. Isn't it? It's the only reason why he knows that. He didn't see, he didn't see like written in the sky, it's England here, for example. So, tawatur and news conveyed by a prophet. And how do you prove that the prophet was a prophet? Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Or that any prophet is a prophet? by miracles. How do you prove the miracles existed? By tawatur. And then the third one is sound intellect. And intellect works in two ways, has two modes as we just mentioned. The badiha, which is intuition or natural disposition, and al-istidlal, deduction. So that's the first step. If he doesn't want to go further than this, we smash him here and leave him there. We tell him, so look, you go away. You're not ready yet. We're only at the first step. Step 2, clarification that the world is an event. Why? Why step 2, clarification that the world is an event? Because the existence of the Creator is established by the existence of His creation. The existence of a trace is evidence for whatever left that trace. This world in which we live is in itself an event, and events don't occur on their own. Happenings don't happen by themselves without something to make it happen. A trace doesn't appear without someone to leave it or something to leave it. So after we confirm the ways of getting knowledge, then we're going to go to clarify that the world is an event. To prove the validity of the divine laws, one must first prove the existence of God. To prove the existence of God, one must prove that the world is created. This can be achieved by proving that the world is made of masses and qualities. The world is made of things that take up space. Everything in the world is something that takes up space or the quality of something that takes up space. The atheist, in his terms, he would say, the world is material. Matter. We say everything in the world is two types. Either it's something that takes up space, or it's the quality of something that takes up space. And the things that take up space have a beginning. How do we know that? Because the qualities of those things that take up space have a beginning. How do we know that? By observation. Observation goes back to which reference? Which source of knowledge? When I say we know that the qualities of the things that take up space have a beginning, and our proof for that is observation, then we're referring back to sound senses. We observe that. We see the motion come into existence and go out of existence. We see the stillness come into existence and go out of existence. We witness that. We see the contact and connection come into existence and go out of existence. We see separation and departure come into existence and go out of existence. So, by senses, sound senses, which is a way for definite knowledge, we know that the qualities of the things that take up space have a beginning. And from there, we say that the things that take up space themselves have a beginning. And the proof for that is that those things that take up space can't exist before their own qualities. The things that take up space can't exist before their qualities and their traits and their characteristics exist. Their qualities and traits and characteristics exist through them. And they can't exist without any qualities, without any traits. For example, it is unconceivable that there is something that is taking up space, but neither moving nor still. Its existence is inconceivable. It can't be. There's not anything that takes up space and it's not moving, nor is it still. This does not exist. Because motion has a beginning and stillness has a beginning. So both of them have a beginning. And there's no body that exists without either one of them. So if the body can't exist without something that has a beginning, then the body, that thing that takes up space, itself has a beginning. Is that clear? So if the things that take up space have a beginning, and their qualities have a beginning, and all of the world is just a whole bunch of things that take up space and their qualities, the world is a sum of things that take up space and their qualities, then the world itself, or the universe if you want, has a beginning. If everything in the world or everything in the universe has a beginning, then the world or the universe itself has a beginning. So to prove the validity of the divine laws, one must first prove the existence of God. To prove the existence of God, one must prove that the world is created. This can be achieved by proving that the world is made of masses and qualities. Qualities, we mean traits, attributes. And thus, the world must be a creation in itself. Period. What it says there, as presented in detail in the coming section about existence, is already edited out of the book. One may also prove that the world is created by nullifying the claim of beginningless events. By nullifying the claim of beginningless events. Period. And the rest of that sentence is edited out of the book already. If you have a hard copy, brothers and sisters, anyone who might have printed out a copy of this and is writing on it, then that's good. You can just adjust your copy. So one may also prove that the world is created by nullifying, that means invalidating, the claim of beginningless events. What is that? In Arabic it's called tasalsul, which is to claim. This is a claim that something exists. Tasalsul, as a rule, as in definition, what is it? It is the claim that something is presently existing. And that present existence, its existence, this present existence, is dependent on something before it. And that previous one is dependent on something before it, which is also dependent on something before it, which is dependent on something before it, forever into the past with no end. This is always invalid no matter what scenario it comes in. People make all kinds of claims that lead to this invalid principle, tasalsul, a beginningless chain of events. This is self-contradictory. An event is something that has a beginning. How can it be beginningless? How could there be a beginningless chain of events? This is impossible. So, if I say, for example, I won't give you this dollar unless I gave you $1 before it. And I won't give you that dollar unless I gave you $1 before it. And I won't give you that dollar unless I gave you $1 before it. And then I kept going without stopping ever. Then how much money will you get? Zero. You get nothing. So, the claim of beginningless events actually negates the present. The claim of beginningless events actually negates the present. If someone claimed that this day of ours only exists because before it there was a day, and that day only existed because before it there was a day, and forever with no beginning, then he's unwittingly, unknowingly denying the existence of the present, as if he's saying that the world never started. That's exactly what he's saying. He's saying there was no start. It never started. Is that clear, brothers and sisters? Then the world or the universe has a beginning. There must have been a first day. There must have been a day before which there was no day. There must have been a first one. So this world is an event. Step 3, proving the existence of the Creator. If one can successfully prove that the world is created, you need to study that information I just gave you. Also let that soak into your heart and then unravel itself. You take it, you think about it, you study it. After time, it will settle in your heart. It'll ripen. It'll ripen in your heart, and you'll understand it better. So step 3 is proving the existence of the Creator. If one can successfully prove that the world is created, then he can easily prove that it has a Creator. For every doing must have a doer. And we just established by step 2 that the world is an event. And why are we using the word event in particular? We're only using the word event to pacify the opponent, which is the atheist, for example. To pacify the opponent. Put a pacifier in his mouth. Put a binky in his mouth. So he won't whine at the word created. When we say the world is an event, we truly mean the world is created. But if we say to the atheist from the beginning, the world is created, he'll disagree. Say no, because that would imply that there's a creator. But if we say that the world is an event, then he might not necessarily disagree. He might, but he might not necessarily disagree. You understand? Is that clear, brothers and sisters? So if one can successfully prove that the world is created, we just mentioned two ways. One is by establishing, clarifying that the world is made of two types of things: masses, things that take up space, and their qualities, that both of these themselves are created, then the whole world must be created. The other way is by nullifying the claim of beginningless events. So we prove that the world is an event, or in other words, has a beginning, and we mean more specifically, is created. So if one can successfully prove that the world is created, then he can easily prove that it has a creator, for every doing must have a doer. As a rule, and the atheist doesn't accept otherwise. The atheist will not accept otherwise. Well, he might, but he'll just fall into a contradiction. He'll fall into what he wants to run away from. If he accepts that a doing has no doer, he'll still fall into what he wants to run away from. How so? Because, firstly, we'll keep it simple. If he came home and he found that his house was ransacked, his windows are broken, his chairs and tables are smashed, his dishes are smashed, all of his drawers are pulled out, his clothing was all pulled out of the drawers, thrown all over the place, his walls spray painted, his lamps are busted, everything, holes in the ceiling, total ransack, he would never accept that no one did it. The atheist will never accept that no one did it. Never. Or let's take the opposite case. He came home and he found his windows are clean, squeaky clean. His whole house, his floors are waxed, blinging. His chairs are pushed under the table. His dishes are put away. Everything's nice and clean. His pillows are fluffed. His blankets are made. Everything. He would never say that no one did it. Never. This one is even stronger because if he's stubborn, he'll say maybe there was an earthquake. Maybe there was an earthquake that ruined my house. Which he doesn't accept to say that is a creation. So let's take the other way. He came and he found that his stuff is all fixed up. He would never accept that no one did it. So the atheist doesn't, in reality, he does not accept that a doing would have no doer. So what would he then, what do you think, how do you anticipate he would respond to what I'm saying right now? What do you think is his next question? What do you think he'd say? I'll give you 30 seconds. No. What do you think he's going to say to me? Because he's not going to accept. I'm his opponent. Five seconds. He's going to say, well, who did your doer? Who created your creator? That's going to be his most likely response. Right? Because he can't deny, he will never accept that there's an obvious doing and no one did it. He will never accept that. So then he's going to say, then who did your doer? Who created your creator? Who made your maker? The answer is, there is no rule that every doer has a doer. That's not the rule. The rule is every doing has a doer. Not every doer has a doer. Who said that the doer is a done thing? Who said? The doer was not done. The doer is the one who did. Which here means created. The doer, that means the creator, is the one who created. Who said the creator has to have a creator? No. It's not a rule that a doer needs a doer. The rule is the doing needs a doer. Okay? And it helps also to know the language, brothers and sisters. Because to what I just said, an atheist might laugh. He might find that that's a stupid thing to say. You say, wow, that's ridiculous. You're special pleading or something he'll say like that. But what I just said is absolutely true. It's true. Linguistically, it's true. It's a true statement. It's a true statement. The statement is, doer, by definition, doesn't need a doer. Doer, by definition, is the one who does. Doing, by definition, needs a doer. Every doing needs a doer. Doer, who said every doer needs a doer? There's no rule like that. You understand, brothers and sisters? It's a true statement. It's a true statement. And he might laugh at that, but it's a true statement. Now, if the doer is a doing himself, then he needs a doer. If the doer is himself also a doing, then he needs a doer. Meaning, if the one who did something is a creation, then he needs a creator too. Like a human being who ransacks a house or cleans a house. He himself is a doing because he's an event, and events don't happen by themselves. Step 4, clarification that God is the only creator and does not resemble created things. Now, after we prove that the creator exists, now we need to prove the proper belief in the creator. By proving the proper belief in the creator, we'll be proving that we have the proper religion. If the opponent is not an atheist, then one can immediately skip to the 4th step. First 3 steps for atheists. In particular. For usually, non-Muslims who confirm the existence of God liken him to the creation or establish a partner for him. Most of the time, one who's not a Muslim, his belief is that God is like the creation in some way. Whether he worshipped a man like Jesus or like the Pharaoh, or he worshipped the sun, or he worshipped the fire, or he worshipped the star, or he worshipped the cow, or he worshipped the tree, or he worshiped a pole with funny faces carved into it, or he worshiped a stone, or he worshiped the devil, or he worshiped a statue, or he worships the stars, or he worships something he imagines in his mind to be a big man existing in the sky. He worships his imagination. All of that is a creation. The proof that God is not like the creation is that had he been like the creation, then whatever could happen to the creation could happen to God. Because whatever is similar to something is susceptible to what its similar is susceptible to. And for that reason, we don't run out into traffic. Even if one of us has never been hit by a car, he won't run out into oncoming traffic because he knows that human beings get hit by cars. And for that reason, one of us is afraid to drop his phone into the toilet, even if he never dropped his phone in the toilet before, because he knows that phones, unless they're waterproof, get ruined when they fall into the toilet. Why does the person know that? How come the person doesn't say, well, I've never been hit by a car. Let me go run out into oncoming traffic. Or my phone has never fallen into the toilet and got ruined before, so let me throw my phone into the toilet. How come the person doesn't do that? Because whatever is similar to something is susceptible to whatever it's similar is susceptible to. And had Allah Ta'ala been like the creation, then whatever could happen to the creation could happen to him, such as destruction, separation, being split into pieces, death, weakness, imperfection, ignorance, change. And the proof that God is one is that if one God is not enough for the world, then he's deficient. And deficiency is impossible for God, or else he wouldn't be God. So there must be one God. Now, we've proved that God exists, and we've proved that God is not like the creation and he has no partner. As for the rest of what's in that paragraph, the evidence for the first case to the end of the paragraph has already been edited out of the book. Step 5, proving the existence of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. To prove the validity of the religious laws and the other matters whose realities can only be known through hearing, one must prove the validity of prophethood. Before proving the validity of prophethood, of the prophethood of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, one may need, if he's talking to an extremely ignorant person, to prove the existence of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And the existence for Muhammad is tawatur, which falls under the category of truthful information, as previously mentioned. So we already know what tawatur is. Only a person who's so ignorant is not sure that Muhammad existed, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Or else, he's not ignorant, he's just stubborn. He doesn't want to hear anyway, so there's no point in talking to him. Some people will say to you, how do you know Muhammad exists? And they actually don't want it proven to them. They just want to deny. Think about that sometimes when you talk to people, brothers and sisters. Sometimes people ask me questions. How do you answer this guy? Does he even want the answer? If he's a person of hawa, if his devious desire has overcome him, he doesn't want the answer. So you're talking to a wall. Step 6, clarification that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. The way to prove his prophethood is to prove that he did miracles. We spoke about that in previous lessons. Some of them were conveyed by tawatur, and the details of clarifying that. So some of them are conveyed by tawatur, period. The way to prove his prophethood is to prove that he did miracles. Some of them were conveyed by tawatur, period. The rest of that is edited out of the book. We spoke about that previously. And saying some of his miracles are narrated by tawatur doesn't harm us because one miracle is sufficient. The one who's not sure about that, then let him research it. He can trace the chains back. He can go through the books and trace the chains back if he really wants to go that far to figure it out. Step 7, clarification that he is truthful about all that he conveyed. That Muhammad is truthful, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, about all that he conveyed. The proof that miracles establish his truthfulness is also mentioned in the section of miracles. So this sentence needs to be worked on here. Yani, the miracle, why does the miracle prove the truthfulness? Where's the evidence in the miracle of the truthfulness? The reason the miracle proves the truthfulness is because the miracle, the mu'jiza, by definition, our definition, is something supernatural that cannot be outdone. Like pointing at the moon and the moon breaking into two pieces. Like tapping a boulder with a staff and the boulder cracks open and a big white camel comes out and its baby comes out too. And it's a solid boulder, not a hollow boulder. And even had it been a hollow boulder, how did two camels get inside? Like his staff turning into a serpent with a mane on its back like a horse. A serpent with a mane on its back like a horse that devours what's in its path. And then when he puts his hand into its mouth, it turns back into a stick. Like hitting a stone with a stick and making water come out of it. Like water springing from between his fingers. Like coming forth with pairs of animals into a huge ship. Don't try that. Go try to come forth with pairs of animals and see what happens to you. So these supernatural things are like as if God said, I enabled this guy to do this. I enabled this man to do this to show you that he's truthful. A prophet does a miracle to prove his truthfulness. He does something that no one can defeat. And step 8, establishment of the truthfulness of the great Qur'an. By proving that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is truthful in all that he conveyed, one proves that the Qur'an is truthful because he conveyed it. And therein is the confirmation of paradise and hell, as well as the prohibition of wine and other matters. And Allah gives the success. Wa subhanallahi wa bihamdih. Any question? That, brothers and sisters, is Muslim knowledge. That is not from philosophy. That is not from the philosophers. That's from the Muslim scholars. That's extracted from the Quran and the Hadith. It's not taken from another source.